Okay, I've been getting variations on this question from different quarters recently, so why not spend a small video-sized hole in the holiday season talking about it? What's the deal, Mallen? You are the most moderate, reasoned voice I've ever come across, and very few people follow you and subscribe to your channel. All the people that say the moderate voice is missing, but don't seek it out. For those who have joined the channel more recently, here's just a smidgen of the backstory. In the first quarter of last year, 2021, the channel started growing strongly. A number of different videos did well at the same time. Around 100 people per day were subscribing, and I was thinking, here we go. This is coming together nicely. Then, on March the 6th, 2021, it was like somebody at YouTube HQ pulled out the plug. And this happened. And that is how it's been ever since. It seemed as though the channel had been the loser in a tweak on the algorithm on March the 6th. Since I was aware of at least one other politically focused channel that had something more or less the same happen at the exact same time, didn't seem to be an unlikely theory. But while I've been learning more and more about YouTube and studying all the creators who talk about how to grow an audience on YouTube, how the algorithm works and so on, I came to the conclusion that although there might have been an algorithm tweak involved in the exact timing, actually most of what's happened to my channel is the result of certain choices that I made early on. So let's talk about how the algorithm works based on the studies and observations of people who have no axe to grind. They just seek to understand how to crack the code so they can advise content creators of various sorts how to do well. YouTube tries to give you videos you want to keep watching. One of the mistakes that creators often make is that when they post a video, they think YouTube is going to try to find an audience for that video. But that's the wrong way round. What YouTube does is it tries to find a video for the audience, full stop. And here we're talking about how videos get recommended to you, which works completely differently to when you search on YouTube, which is more ordered by keywords and by topic, but it's the minority of the way people find videos. And the way YouTube understands the audience is by looking at who liked what videos in the past, who watched the whole of those videos and then went on to watch more of them. And this was something I tripped over at an early stage, but I didn't realise then what I was seeing. Now I'll come back to that in a minute. When I started doing this channel properly, there was a rising energy behind this group that had been labelled the intellectual dark web. Jordan Peterson and the like. And that group, at that point anyway, was asking good questions, challenging the excesses of wokeness in a very effective way, seemed to be leading something of an intellectual renaissance of thought, was getting a strong audience amongst the centre-right. But they were hopeless on climate change, totally out of their respective fields, and which therefore they reverted back to some of the least intellectual positions that were out there. Now I know some of you in the comments will want to argue with that. Some other time, I'm just explaining how it was at the start. So I started trying to engage that audience with arguments about how, while there was a great sceptical and thoughtful contribution to be made in that area, pretending that there was no climate change happening at all, that wasn't it. Hence, I did several videos that were aimed at search, responding to comments specifically by Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, and it kind of worked, up to a point. And things moved on a lot from there. I started looking at arguments on different sides with seriousness and respect. The channel morphed into something a bit more open and discursive and responsive than that initial motivator might have led to. But now here's the thing. What I was looking to do at the beginning was to engage people who really needed to hear an alternative argument, who needed to have a discussion. And that's a highly valid communication objective. All these people on social media talking bravely, exclusively to their own in-group most of the time. I was seeking to open a discussion with a group I had common ground with, but which didn't think the same as me on a crucial area, at least one, which I made the focus of the discussion. But that's not how YouTube works. In spite of what some people think, YouTube doesn't care about what you do or don't believe. It just wants to find the videos that will keep you entertained and engaged. Now, I did end up attracting a valued and special audience. I attracted people who saw the common ground that we shared. We could roll our eyes together at some woke nonsense, but they were often challenged by some of the content that didn't fit their beliefs, and they were open to the discussion. They valued being challenged. One of the common comments I see on my channel that I rarely see on other people's channels is, "I really enjoy this channel, even though I don't always agree with what you say." So, who is my audience? Well, YouTube tells me what other channels my audience tends to watch. They include Maya Tuzi, conservative commentator, Talk TV, GB News, Neil Oliver, Sky News Australia, Biz News TV, Michael Heaver, the New Culture Forum, all unapologetically populist right channels, along with Dr. John Campbell, Brett Weinstein's Dark Horse podcast on the COVID contrarian side, and a few others. This is the content a sizable chunk of my audience watches, and you could say that it reflects the success of that early decision I made in terms of how I would seek to engage exactly that sort of audience. So this is how the algorithm works. The algorithm sees you watch a video and then it thinks, well, other people who watched that video liked this other video by this other creator, so maybe you'd like this one as well. And then it takes careful note of whether you do or not, the result of its suggestion. However, the algorithm has no grouping for personality type. It doesn't sit there thinking, well, Joel is a bit of an ideologue, way too close-minded for Mallen's channel, but David, well, he knows what he thinks, but he does like a bit of intellectual debate, so he'll probably like this one. No, it says David liked this, hey Joel, how about this one? And Joel takes a look and says, are you off your head? Why would I watch that one? This is the thing. My audience is a subset of a larger group. And so YouTube found that recommending my videos to the larger group just kept drawing blanks. And that's probably because my real sustainable audience is over there. People who identify as being of the centre, who don't agree with wokeism, but also think Trump's denial of elections that go against him is too dangerous for democracy, and so on. That sums me up, doesn't describe the bulk of my audience. But YouTube doesn't push my videos over there. It sees my existing audience here, knows that others like them rarely respond because they don't like being challenged, so it stops trying, and it gave up trying on March the 6th, 2021. So what were the videos that were doing so well just before that point? Well, it was these videos. The climate paradox no one talks about. I think climate skeptics saw that title and thought it likely to be supporting their viewpoint, and would have found then that it didn't. COVID nudging, are we being manipulated? Strong resonance with that audience, one of the areas where we share an ongoing critique. The Great Reset, the real story behind Build Back Better, got lots of views, but mostly from people who then hated the fact that I wasn't parroting the nonsense talking points that were current at that point. Before that period, my videos were, in typical with most YouTube channels as I understand it, getting more views from non-subscribers than subscribers. That's the sign that YouTube is testing your video out with new audiences, seeing who's going to respond. After March the 6th, that wholly and completely stopped. Suddenly, new views were a tiny proportion. It was almost exclusively my existing subscribers watching. YouTube had just ramped down showing my videos to any new audiences at all. And I think it was because it had a ramped up period with those few successful videos, so it started showing more and more of my content to those people, and it quickly cottoned on that they were not responding to it. So it just thought, in the mission to find videos that people want to watch, this channel, it's not proving that useful for this group. And it's not its mission to look in different places, to different groups for audiences for the channel. It's its mission to find videos for specific audiences. I said I'd already seen this in action but hadn't realised it at the time. So this is what that looked like. I did several videos addressing arguments made by climate skeptic Tony Heller. Hella's audience was a reasonable overlap for mine, and so those videos got high profile with his audience, a fact which coincidentally annoyed the hell out of him. I then did an interview with Potholer54. Most of his audience don't know that exists. How can that be? I mean, the video has Potholer54 in the title of the video, the same as my videos on Hella did with his name. So surely the algorithm will realise that it would be of interest to his viewers. No. It looks at his audience, mostly very different to mine, very different to Hella's, and it presumes that videos of interest to my audience are not of interest to his. Most of his supporters who have discovered that video came across it via search, either on YouTube or on Google, not via recommendations, which is the more powerful route. Some of Potholer's audience view more widely and with less of a bias to one side. Those ones might have gotten it recommended, but the majority not. Bear in mind, YouTube doesn't care that you're interested in climate change, except as a secondary concern. This is why Tony Hella videos don't get recommended to Extinction Rebellion supporters, and vice versa. Both may talk about climate change, and YouTube kind of knows that's the subject, but that will only be a factor if somebody's looking via search. They appeal to very different audiences with very different viewing habits, and that's what the algorithm cares about. So this is why this channel's static. People trip over it by accident, they find it that way. But this is what a channel looks like when the engine of YouTube has been wholly disconnected. It is drifting in the ocean with no means of propulsion. Not because of YouTube censorship or shadow banning, but because I broke the code. Rather than clearly identifying my target audience and then giving them what they want, or at least mostly giving them what they want, I identified an audience where I had 50% overlap, and I focused my attention often on the other 50% where we didn't overlap. And it worked for you, my valued and free-thinking audience watching this, but you are not typical of the people who watch the videos on the other channels that you tend to watch. So that is reality. Not how we would wish it to be, but how it is. So the question is, what am I going to do about it? The status quo is not sustainable. I've had less time in the last few months because I've had to do client work to make ends meet and so on. So the strategy of the last year, keep on going, hope the channel would work it out. That hasn't worked. Nobody can say that I haven't given it plenty of time. Now, there are 3 strategies I've been recommended by YouTube experts to people who find themselves in a similar sort of position. Not to me directly, just general advice. One is to audit the channel, revamp titles and thumbnails of old content to be very clear why they would appeal to a certain target audience, maybe retire some of the content that isn't in line with that, tweak the branding to be likewise, and hope that this starts finally to feed through into how the algorithm begins to understand the channel. My problem is I'm always attracted to ambiguity, and that feeds through into the titles and the thumbnails and even the title of the channel. I mean, Dangerously Reasonable is a great title. Hat tip to my friend Toby who suggested it. But then you get channels firmly on that populist right groove who call themselves the voice of reason. And voices of reason very often turn out to be shouty and entertainingly unreasonable. So perhaps my title is still too ambiguous. Ambiguity forces the algorithm to work harder. The algorithm will prefer content that doesn't do that. So that's one option. Another option would be to create a brand new channel. Put content into there where it's more clear about its positioning, make the content as good as I can, let YouTube find the audience for it without interference. The only problem with that approach is that I literally wouldn't be able to tell my existing audience about it. Not until it had found a substantial audience YouTube's way, which might happen quickly or it might happen slowly. Because if I did, then you'd go and watch it and YouTube would take you as the audience profile and it's straight back to square one. It would have to be a secret channel. And I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see how long it would take before someone from this current audience discovered it via YouTube mechanization. It'd be kind of interesting experiment, but it's deeply unsatisfactory because I value my existing audience, even if that would hopefully be temporary. Temporary because once it had started to build an audience based on the type of content that it really is, by then you would think it wouldn't matter if the existing audience joined them there, because YouTube already knows what it's doing. A third option is to keep on doing exactly what I'm doing, but start engaging in search-based growth strategies and outreach onto other platforms. I did one video recently that was the sort of thing that you would do if you were following a search-based strategy, and that was the response to Jordan Peterson's recent article. And the figures don't lie. That video did slightly better in terms of views, not hugely, but it brought in 89 new subscribers versus the usual for recent videos between 0 to 10. I suppose the fourth strategy would be to allow the audience to capture me in time-honoured tradition. Do lots more anti-woke videos, criticise Democrats, slate for genuine climate extremists like Extinction Rebellion, and then just shut up about the things that I believe on various topics that I know the audience mostly doesn't agree with. Take the audience I have, give them purely what they and the other people who watch the same content as them actually want. Sooner or later, YouTube would begin to notice and start to test more of those videos out in that larger group again. Now that last one is the only one I rule out without question. Whatever I do, it has to be representative of who I am, otherwise, what's the point? I've seen creators who started with integrity get relatively rich, to be fair, by following their audience into deeper and deeper rabbit holes. It's not the sort of success I'm aiming to emulate. Now you could note that the first three strategies are not mutually incompatible, except in as much as there's only so many hours in the day. However, that's the landscape that I'm reviewing right now as we head towards the new year. I wanted to share with you what I'd learned about YouTube and where it leaves me. The one thing I commit to as we go into 2023 is that I am not intending on giving up trying to crack this, on the contrary. And that is made all the more of an easy choice from the good wishes and encouragement I often receive here, even sometimes from people who have been sharply critical at times in the past. Indeed, who will no doubt be sharply critical again in the future. And it's particularly made possible by those Patreon supporters, of course, which is why I shout them out every week. Anyway, there you go. I hope you had a great Christmas and you're focused in on hitting the ground running wherever you are in 2023. Thanks for watching. Shall see you again for the news roundup on Friday. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please share with anyone else you think would also enjoy it. Word of mouth is really important to us. And if you've not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? As the saying goes, that subscribe button won't smash itself.